All right. Hello, everyone. Let's officially get started. We want to welcome you to our highly anticipated webinar on full spectrum personalization. We are so excited to have you all here today. We had tons of people sign up for today's session, which was really exciting. And so we are thrilled to be able to show you how you are going to be able to unlock a whole new level of personalization in your classrooms. We're going to do that by taking you on a deep dive into all of eSpark's latest features that enable you to bring that level of personalization to your students. So first off, we appreciate you taking that time at the beginning of today's session to let us get to know you better. And we're going to share the results of that first poll with you all now so that we can get a sense of who we have joining us today. So you should be able to see the results up on your screen. Looks like we have a great mix of people, lots of teachers, but also some admins, some coaches, and also some good variety in where you all are in your eSpark journeys right now. We got some people who are brand new to eSpark and also some eSpark veterans who have been using for more than a year. So wherever you are in your eSpark journey, you're going to come away from today's session with lots of tips that you're going to be able to apply to your classroom right away. So you are in the right place. I'm also excited to see that you all are passionate about personalized learning just as we are. You are most excited about differentiated lesson plans so your students can work at your own pace. That is perfect because that ties in perfectly to what we are going to talk about today. So we are going to have a few more polls throughout today's session, so keep an eye out for that. And we're also going to tell you when they pop up on your screen, so don't worry. But we're just looking forward to hearing more from you all and learning a little bit about the ways that you're going to be able to apply the learnings from today's session to your classrooms. All right. So now that we've gotten to know you all a little bit, we'd love to share a little bit about ourselves. You're going to be hearing from several eSparkers today, starting with myself. I'm Kelsey. I'm a member of the marketing team here at eSpark, and I am the host of today's webinar. We are also thrilled to have our CEO, our CEO Eric on the call, and he's going to be telling you more about eSpark's core vision and mission for full spectrum personalization and how that came to be. And then finally, you're going to be hearing from Jess, who is one of our amazing PD facilitators, and she's really excited to be able to demonstrate all of the personalized learning activities that we have to show you today. Before we dive into today's agenda, just wanted to take a moment to celebrate all of your amazing accomplishments so far this school year. Students across the country have already spent over 600 million minutes learning their math and reading skills on eSpark, and they've already mastered over 3 million standards this school year, which I feel like I just have to pause and take a moment to appreciate how many high fives that is that your students have earned. It is so, so great to see. And it's really exciting for us to see full spectrum personalization already come to life in so many of your classrooms this year through some of the activities that we're going to be talking about today. One of those is our choice text personalized reading passages. We'll share more about those later, but we're super excited to now already have close to 1 million of those choice text stories that have been personalized by your students so that they're able to be practicing their reading skills through stories that they're super excited by and super engaged with. We're just really proud to be able to support your students this year and to be able to help you bring this level of personalization to your teaching practice. So thank you all for your hard work because we know that none of this is possible without you all. Okay, so let's talk about the purpose of today's webinar. We are here to showcase what full spectrum personalization looks like with the help of some of our latest learning activities. So today we're going to tell you all about eSpark's mission to bring personalized learning to classrooms all across the country, just like yours. Next, we are going to unveil a brand new subject coming to eSpark. We are so excited to tell you all about it. And then we are going to do some live demonstrations of each of our personalized learning activities. And we're going to be sharing tips for how you're going to be able to make the most of those in your classroom. And then finally, at the end of today's session, we're going to have some dedicated time to answer all of your questions. So as we're talking today, go ahead and feel free to send your questions in the chat as we go, and we're going to do our best to answer them there. But if we don't get to your question in the chat, we'll be sure to get to them during our Q&A time. So make sure you stick around till the end for that. All right, with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Our CEO, Eric, is really excited to share a bit more with you all about eSpark's vision and mission. So I am going to pass it over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Kelsey. And Kelsey, I didn't realize we were approaching 1 million choice texts. That is really exciting. I remember a year ago, choice text was just a sketch up in some documents somewhere. That's exciting how far we've come. We need to find a way to celebrate that when we hit that milestone. A big thank you to all of you for joining us today. Look, when I arrived at eSpark about a year and a half ago, the challenge was to figure out how we can continue advancing our mission and vision. And in particular, we wanted to lean into this idea that learning could be more student-centered. Folks have been using the phrase personalized learning to describe what we and many others in our industry have been doing for the past decade. But if you ask the students themselves, they'll likely tell you that the curriculum has not felt very personalized to them. Now, fortunately for us, these groundbreaking advancements in generative AI have come along at just the right time. And in today's webinar, we're going to show you several examples of how we leverage that AI to reimagine learning with students at the center. We're using the phrase full spectrum personalization to describe what we're doing. And for us, full spectrum personalization is built on 3 pillars. First is this notion that every student's lesson plan is customized to their learning level. We call this the adaptive pathway, and it's been a bedrock piece of eSpark for many years. Of course, we're not the only ones that are customizing the sequence of the lessons presented to each individual learner. Our industry has gotten quite crowded with companies that assess a student's learning level and prescribe lessons to match. And in fact, sometimes I think that leveled learning might be a better description of the status quo in supplemental curriculum. But now we've got a chance to go a significant step beyond the mere sequencing of lessons. We can personalize the lessons themselves. And this means that the content inside the lesson is customized on the fly around a student's background and interests. For instance, students can work on reading comprehension using text that they've helped create. Students can work on math standards with a lesson that's set in the context of something they care about. We're excited to show you examples of each of these in just a few minutes. And then finally, atop this foundation of personalized sequencing of the lessons and personalized content within the lessons, we are personalizing the instruction and the remediation inside the activities as well. Imagine the hints and tips and feedback that happen within a lesson. That type of remediation should be personalized to the inputs from the student. In the past, this has been really hard in digital curriculum like eSpark, but not anymore. I can't wait to show you a new writing lesson that is a shining example of this 3rd pillar. Now, when you add all that together, these powerful forces of personalization allow us to create confident learners through full spectrum personalization. But from here on out, let's dispense with the theoretical talk. No more strategy, no more promises about what's to come. Let's talk about what is here right now and ready for you and your students. We released our first installment back at the beginning of this school year. Kiddos returned from summer break, and they were greeted by a brand new type of reading lesson called choice texts. We called it that because the students get to choose the reading passage that the lesson is based on, and not just choose from a few options. With literature standards, for example, the kids get to co-create a story with AI and use that as the basis for the lesson. It has been so much fun to watch reluctant readers come alive when presented with this opportunity to read their very own stories about topics that are interesting to them. For example, this is a story that my daughter created. It's about one of our backyard chickens. Now, choice text was a big hit, but it also created a problem for us. Those kids got pretty attached to the stories that they created. They wanted a way to save them and to share them with their teachers and to share them with their classmates. They wanted to read that story that their classmate was talking about at recess. So we created a class library to allow for the socialization of these texts. This library has infused a social element into eSpark, and it's been fun to watch kids engage with their classmates' work. We knew we were onto something with choice text in the class library, so naturally we wanted a way to extend this concept to math. In November, we rolled out a new set of math lessons that allow a student to practice a math concept within the context of something that they care about. I always like to use my son as an example. He's a big baseball player, and his engagement with math goes way up when math problems are embedded into a real world activity that he loves, like baseball. And finally, I am thrilled to unveil our latest installment towards full spectrum personalization. And this one involves a brand new subject coming to eSpark. Historically, we've been a platform focused on reading and math, and we are now introducing eSpark Writing. Our newest activity brings an AI-powered writing tutor right into your classroom. And writing is a really fantastic combination of all three of those pillars of full spectrum personalization. This AI-powered tutor will work with a student to identify a topic that's interesting to them, and then we'll coach them through the process of writing about it, delivering personalized feedback along the way. Now, why did we decide to add writing to our curriculum? Well, in short, it's because you told us to. The quotes on this page, they're a representative sample of the pain points that we kept hearing from teachers, but we also heard from so many of you that writing would be a natural extension to the choice text experience. You saw the way that your students engage with their choice text reading passage, and you heard from many of your students that they would really like a way to extend it. Now, at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Senior Professional Learning Coordinator, Jess Nelson. She gets to do the fun part of this webinar. She's going to demo each of our new activities and share some best practices with you.
Thanks so much, Eric. I am so excited for this opportunity to demonstrate these incredibly engaging activities and share some tips for implementing them in class. Now, as I go through each personalized activity, I do encourage you all to send us messages in the chat. Maybe you have questions for us or feedback. Our team will do our best to answer those questions as they come in. And remember, we are going to be hosting a live Q&A at the end of the session. So we're going to start by talking about choice texts, our AI-powered reading activities that we released at the beginning of this school year. With choice text, there are endless possibilities for topics students can read about. So we'd actually love to pause here and hear from you all. I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll for you all. And what we're wondering about is which of these topics your students would most love to read about. Maybe it's YouTubers or Roblox, animals in nature, hobbies, food. Maybe you're not sure and you'd love to find out. We'll give you a couple moments to answer that question in Zoom. You should see that poll has popped up on your screen now. We definitely have some clear winners already. I'll wait another 10 seconds or so for you all to answer that question, and then we'll look at the results. All right, so you should see the results of that poll now. Our top 3 responses were YouTubers, Roblox, animals in nature, and I'm not at all surprised by that. I'm going to share the results of what we've been seeing on eSpark in a second. What's really cool is because we've been having students working on choice text since the fall, we can actually share some data with you about what has been resonating the most with students. So let's take a look. The winning topic for eSparkers is YouTubers. Not surprisingly, students are drawn to reading about the content creators that inspire them and make them laugh. And just as it was with you all, the runners-up are Roblox and animals in nature. So part of what is so cool about choice text is that it can give teachers unique insight into what students are passionate about. So we're going to go ahead and take a behind-the-scenes look now at the magic of choice texts. Now, as Eric mentioned, this activity is called choice text because it allows students to make choices. Through those choices, they're helping eSpark generate a unique text for them. Then they'll be asked standards-based comprehension questions about their text. So we're going to take a look at an example. Now, before we dive in, you should know that there are different types of texts that students can create with choice texts depending on the standard that they're working on. So we're going to be looking at an example with a reading literature standard, and that means that the type of text we're going to create will be a story. So we'll go ahead and get started with the choice text activity now. We'll do a live demonstration to show you exactly how it works. So first thing you'll notice is that we are having a conversation with our popular character, Rocky. Now, since we're creating a story, the first question and choice that Rocky is asking us to make is to describe the main character in our story. Now, you'll see we have a couple of pre-selected options here we can choose from. Students in second grade and below will just see these pre-selected options to make it really user-friendly for them. Now, right now, you also see I have a text box. Students in third grade and above also have access to the text box, meaning they can make the text that much more personalized to them because they can type in their own responses. Now, I am going to write about a golden retriever because I have a golden retriever, and I would love the idea of reading a story about my dog. The next choice that I get to make is I get to name my character. My dog's name is Marvel, and we're going to stick true and make Marvel the character of our story. Next, we get to tell a little bit more about our character. We're going to get to describe a character trait. And you'll see we have a couple options to choose from: brave, shy, clever, funny. I'm going to stick with typing my own responses, and we're going to go with friendly. Marvel is a very typical golden retriever. She wants to be everybody's friend. She's very popular in the neighborhood. And then there's one more choice we get to make, and that is to describe the setting of our story. Now, I live in San Diego, California. Of course, the number one place we go to with Marvel is the beach. It's her favorite place to play fetch. So we're going to go with the beach. Now, we're going to go ahead and press start reading, and you'll see that eSpark is going to generate a text for us live, paragraph by paragraph. We have a text here called Marvel at the Beach. We also have an image that was generated for us. We have Marvel at the beach wagging its tail, which is really exciting. Whenever I see these images generated, I really feel like, wow, that's exactly what I was imagining. That's my dog. And it's just such a magical part of the experience. Now, I'll go ahead and read you just a quick snapshot of the text so that you can get a sense of the story that we've created. It says, Marvel, a golden retriever, loved the beach. His fur shone like gold in the sun. He lived near the sea with his family. Every day he couldn't wait to play in the sand. One sunny day, Marvel and his family went to the beach. Marvel ran around, his tail wagging fast. He loved to feel the sand under his paws and the wind in his fur. So that's just a quick introduction to a really sweet story about Marvel. And again, I know that this was something that I just helped to create. So it's coming to life before my eyes, and it's generated right in front of me. Now, a couple of really cool features I'll point out. In the upper left corner, we have a little speaker button, and that's going to be our audio support for this activity. So we can actually read aloud the text to students to make it that much more accessible to them. We also have a make easier button. So if students were struggling to read the text on their own, we can actually rewrite the entire text for them one grade level below, again, to make it more accessible to them and to ensure that students can work on this activity independently and not need help from their teacher. Now, when they are done reading their story, they'll press the done reading button at the end, and we open up a split screen for them. This is where we start to ask students comprehension questions based on their text that are aligned to the standard they're working on. Now, first thing, we'd love to get their feedback on the story, so they can let us know what they thought. They can even type a little bit more to tell us what they thought of the story. We've had some really sweet quotes here from students that I'll share with you in a moment. And then we dive right into our quiz. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate how the quiz works and how Rocky's going to be providing us some support along the way. So our first question is, what did Marvel find on the beach? We didn't read that far into the story, so I'm going to do my best to find a wrong answer for us. We're going to go with a yellow Frisbee. And we'll see how Rocky responded. So Rocky said, "That's not the right one, but no problem at all. Let's try again." So really encouraging students there, letting them know if they didn't get the answer correct, but helping them move forward. Now we also get a hint. So I'll give you a hint. Look for something Marvel picked up. Now we can see here, I see a sentence, he picked it up. I see there's a red ball, so I'll go ahead and choose red ball. Hopefully we're answering correctly now, and we are. Rocky says, "Fantastic, you got the first one right. Great job. We'll move on to the next one." And now we have our next question. So as you can see, Rocky is responding directly to how students are answering the questions and is able to give them targeted feedback and hints that are actually based in the story that they created. Now, as you can imagine, students are loving choice texts. We have students saying, "That was the best story I've ever read. I want to do another story. The last one was so fun." And I'm going to go ahead and just let one student tell you for herself what she thought of her story.
What do you think of the story so far?
I don't like it.
You don't like it?
I love it.
Really sweet response. We are so happy to hear that students are loving these stories. It just stands out to us. And this is why we wanted to create this activity, to really spark that joy of reading for students. And we just cannot wait for you all to try this activity out if you haven't already. And now I do want to share a few more details with you about how choice text is actually incorporated into the eSpark curriculum. So first, I mentioned earlier, there are different types of text that students can create depending on the standard they're working on. And we looked at a reading literature standard, we made a story. For our F standards, students can actually create their own decodable readers. So this is really great for phonics instruction. We have a really cool example here called B at C. For our I standards, students create informational texts like articles. They get to actually identify topics of interest to read about, and that includes the options from our poll earlier, like YouTubers and Roblox. We also have a great example here about types of horses. So let's talk about how students access choice text on eSpark. First of all, there is a choice text activity that's built into most reading quests. So that means students are automatically encountering this activity when they're working at their own level, at their own pace in the adaptive learning path. So there's nothing you need to do to ensure students work on choice text. They'll be seeing this activity automatically as part of their journey on eSpark. However, you do also have the ability to assign choice text activity using our small group skills feature. Actually, we do have a choice text activity recommendation ready for you to assign on the home tab of your dashboard. And then also you can always go to small group skills and search for choice text so that you can see all of the different activities we have for you to assign. I'm actually going to go into a teacher dashboard now and show you real quick how to do this and where you can find our recommendations. So moving over into a teacher dashboard, in case anybody hasn't seen it before, you know you're in the eSpark dashboard because you're always going to have this blue bar at the top with different tabs you can click on, and we're always going to start on the home tab. Right on the home tab, we have this section called Teachers Like You, and this is where you're always going to see a choice text recommendation, and there's a button that says Assign Now that you can assign the lesson right away to your students. Now, if you want to search for other lessons to assign, you can go one tab to the right where it says Small Group Skills, and this is our assignability feature where you can see our entire library of skills, and then you can search by keyword to assign. So not only can you search by standard code, by keyword, by theme, like Valentine's Day, for example, you can also search by activity type. So if you type in choice text, you're going to see we have so many different choice texts for you to assign. And of course, you can filter by grade level, and you can also filter by subject, which will be reading. So there are a lot of ways that you can begin to incorporate choice text strategically into your class routines. For whole class instruction, you could assign a choice text that's aligned to the standard you're currently covering for reading in class. And then as students complete the assignment, you can see the assessment data to see what their mastery looks like for that skill. It's also a great option for small group work. You can make a choice text station for part of your centers, station rotations. And of course, this extends to independent work as well. You can assign individual students a choice text, and that can be a really great tool to spark a love of reading in any of your reluctant readers. I'm going to wrap up our section on choice texts by emphasizing why this activity is making such an impact. Of course, it's because it's research-based. Research shows that students read more, understand more, and are more likely to continue reading when they have the opportunity to choose what they read. eSpark is the only reading platform that's currently using AI to deliver lessons on demand based on each student's background and interests. The unparalleled approach of choice text appeals to even the most reluctant readers in ways that were never before possible. Now, we're going to move on to another personalized learning feature that's actually an extension of choice texts. We're going to be talking next about the class library, and this is an opportunity for your class to build a personalized collection of texts. So we're actually going to pause again here and hear directly from you. We're going to start another poll. And in this case, we would love to hear what do your students like to do to show off their work? If there's something they're proud of, how do they want to share that with their peers? Take a minute to read through those responses and answer the poll on your screen. See responses from a little more than half the group. We'll wait just a couple more seconds here and then we'll end the poll. Okay, so not surprisingly, a lot of you said all of the above. They want to be able to display their projects, take them home, show it to their classmates, earn certificates, prizes, etc. But one of the more popular responses was having time to show work to their classmates. And that's a big thing that we've been able to accomplish with the class library. And really what we're excited about with the class library feature is that it does give opportunities to be able to do all of these things and have several ways for students to be able to share their work and be proud of their work. So the class library is a space where students can publish their choice texts for their classmates to see. At the end of a choice text activity from that split screen view, when they're done answering the comprehension questions, we give students the option to publish their text. We ask them, do they want to add their text to the class library? And they can always say yes or no. Now, if they say yes and they choose to add their text to the library, it gets published for the rest of the class to read. And if they say no, they can still access their text because they also have access to My Library, which contains all of their published texts and their private texts. I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like from the student experience and how students access the class library. So moving into a student dashboard now, if you haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like. It's very user-friendly for kids. At the top, they see the section that says From My Teacher. These are going to be lessons that you've assigned. So again, you could assign a choice text here and they could find that assignment right at the top. Scrolling down, we also have My Quests. This is the adaptive learning path, which is the student-led learning option, and they just choose reading or math to work at their own level and pace. At the very bottom, we have the class library. They're going to have a class library for every class that they're in. Most of the time, we see just one class for students. And when they click into the class library, they'll be able to see all of the text that students in their class have published. Now you can see the image of the text, you can see the title. They can click into a text that sounds interesting to them. They'll be able to read it. They can, we're adding some social components like being able to like the text. And then you'll see that they don't have students' names on the text, so they won't necessarily know who's published the text, but they're still able to really just share in the joy of the other work that students have created in their class. When they're done reading the text, they'll press the Done Reading button and they'll be taken back to their library. And remember, they can always go to My Library to see the text that they've created, including the ones that they've published and the ones that they've kept private. So that is how students experience the class library. Let's talk now about the teacher experience. Teachers also have the ability to review the class library from the teacher dashboard. There's a new tab this year called the Student Work tab, and this has all of the work that your students create on eSpark. So let's go ahead and go back to the teacher dashboard and take a look. From that blue bar at the top of the teacher dashboard, this new tab is all the way on the right-hand side where it says Student Work. And this is going to show you, again, all of the work students create on eSpark. Most of you at this point are aware of two different types of work that students can create. So one, they can create, of course, choice texts. And then two, they can also create student video recordings, which is an optional feature at the end of quests or the adaptive learning path. Now, I'll point out that when you're looking at the choice text here, there's a column on the right-hand side that says published. This is where you'll be able to see if students have added their text to the class library or if they've kept it private. So this green icon means that they published it. If there's a gray icon, that means they kept it private. Now, regardless of whether they added it to the class library or not, all you have to do is click on the title of the text and you'll be able to read that text yourself. And here we have an example of a decodable reader. Now, once you're here, you can see the name of the student. You can see what standard they were working on. You can print this so that you can share it easily. You can favorite it so you can find it easily again. And whether they published it or kept it private, you'll either have the ability to remove it from the class library or, if needed, report it to eSpark. Keep in mind that the choice text activity has built-in moderation to ensure that the text students create are class appropriate so that they can confidently share those with other students in the class. But of course, you have the ability to remove them or to report them as needed. But we have every confidence that the built-in moderation is there to keep this activity really safe and fun for students. All right, so now you have seen both the student and the teacher's experience of the class library and how you can share in the joy of choice texts. There are so many reasons to be excited about this new feature. It's a way to foster shared excitement and investment in reading to feel like you're building something together. And it's also an additional opportunity to extend the ability for students to choose things that they want to read about. And of course, it gives them that outlet to show off the work that they're proud of. We have a ton of suggestions for you for how you could incorporate the class library into your routines. For example, you could pick a text to highlight each week for a read aloud. You could print out some of your favorite stories for the class bulletin board. You could include student stories in work portfolios or email a PDF to parents. You could even have students do a think, pair, share after reading time. So you can see how those options we talked about at the beginning for sharing student work, we can really touch on all of those with this new feature. On top of those suggestions, we also have a ton of printable resources that you can use that can build more excitement around choice texts and the class library. For example, we have a worksheet called All About My Choice Texts, and this can promote reflecting on the text. We even have cool certificates you can reward your students for the funniest text or the most creative text. So this can be a really great incentive for students. And you can find all of these resources on the home tab of your teacher dashboard. So I want to show you real quick how you can find these. Navigating back to my teacher dashboard now, I'm going to go back to the home tab, which is all the way on the left-hand side. And from here, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You're going to see here that we have our Sparktacular freebies page. And if you click on any of these buttons, it will open up a new web page for you where you can find our entire collection of printable resources. And you'll see we have an entire choice text section here. Now, there may be instances where you know which resource you'd like to look for and you want to search for that resource. On eSpark, I'll remind you about our support feature. In the bottom right corner, you'll find that blue chat icon. You can always reach out to us with questions there, and you can also search for specific resources. So, for example, if I type in choice texts, you'll see the first thing that pops up is our printable resources for choice texts. So, two great ways that you can find some printable resources to support your implementation. All right, choice texts and the class library, as you can see, have become a pivotal part of the eSpark experience. And those features are just the beginning of full spectrum personalization in eSpark. Next, I'm excited to share how we are also beginning to leverage generative AI for personalized instruction in math with a new activity called Choice Math. Our team at eSpark includes many former teachers, and we are always looking for opportunities to save teachers time and effort. So again, we'd love to hear directly from you and learn a little bit more about your priorities and some challenges you may face, specifically when it comes to word problems. So I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll for you all and give you all a moment to respond. We're wondering what's challenging about finding word problems for your class? Is it real world applications, attention grabbing topics, content that's leveled appropriately for all students? Take a moment to respond in Zoom. Take a few more moments to respond. All right, thank you so much for your input, everybody. We really do appreciate this feedback. Again, I'll share the results with you all so you can see. I'm actually pretty fascinated by these results. We have pretty even requests across the board. So what's really kind of fascinating to us about AI is the potential for us to be able to create these individualized word problems that are for individual students in the context of topics they care about that really can touch on all of these issues by having both the attention-grabbing topics and the real-world applications and content that's appropriately leveled for them. So really glad to see that there's kind of an even distribution there of the priorities and needs that everybody is expressing. All right, so let's take a look at the choice math feature. It is, as you can imagine, and kind of looking at these screenshots here, it's very similar as far as the student experience goes to the choice text activity. Students will have a conversation with Rocky. They select or input topics they're interested in, and then eSpark generates a math word problem for them that's aligned to the standard they're working on and asks them a few questions. So we're going to take another look at a live demo, and we're going to have an example that's using multiplication and division. Again, we have a really similar starting screen here. We'll go ahead and begin the math version of this activity. We start our conversation with Rocky. He says, "Hey there, math magicians. We're going to create a math story together." So in this case, instead of having multiple different choices that we're making, we make one choice, which is to describe the topic that we're going to be reading about. And we have some pre-selected options to choose from. Again, second grade and below, just see the pre-selected options, so it's more user-friendly for them. And the options that we're seeing here now, these are going to be similar to the options that students have in choice texts for their informational texts as well. Now, also, third grade and above, they'll have the text box and they'll be able to type in their own responses. I'm going to do something silly like chocolate. I see a great question in the chat about the availability of choice math, and we'll talk all about how it's integrated into our curriculum as we are completed with looking at the demo. So we have a story being generated for us called Chocolate Chip Chaos. Again, we're working on an illustration as well. You'll see some really similar features here to choice text, like the audio support, the make easier button. And again, I'm going to go ahead and just read a quick snapshot of this for you so you can get a sense of how we're setting up the word problem. So it says, Lily and Max had a big plan. They wanted to bake the best chocolate chip cookies for their class. Their class had 20 hungry kids, and each kid would get 5 cookies. Lily and Max set out with a huge bowl to mix their dough. They poured in flour, sugar, eggs, and butter. Then came the best part, chocolate chips. They had bags of chips, each with 100 tasty bits. So you can see already the difference there between choice text and choice math is how we're incorporating numbers and clearly making this a word problem for students. When they are done reading, again, they can give us feedback on what they thought of the story. They can type in feedback for us to tell us what they thought, which we always really appreciate, so we can make these activities the best they can be for your students. And then we're going to be diving into our math quiz. So in this case, the question is, again, focusing on multiplication and division. If Lily and Max want to give 5 cookies to each of the 20 kids in their class, how many cookies do they need to bake in total? I'm going to go ahead and try to choose a wrong answer here so we can see how Rocky gives us feedback. Rocky says, that's not quite the right answer, but don't sweat it. Let's give it another shot. One of the things I really appreciate about what Rocky does is always keeping it positive for students and encouraging them along the way to really promote their growth and keep them engaged. And again, we get a hint. Multiply the number of kids by the number of cookies each kid will get. So again, those hints are very tailored to how students are responding and tailored to the story that they helped to create. And of course, Rocky continues to celebrate them as they get their answers correct. So you can see that we have successfully transferred the magic of personalized learning that we created with choice texts to math. Now, unlike choice text, choice math is not currently part of the adaptive learning path. Right now, these activities are available to try for kindergarten to 6th grade by searching for choice math in our small group skills feature. So I noticed you said this in the chat. When you search for these, you are going to see that they're in a beta mode, meaning we love your feedback if you do try this activity out with your class. Eventually, choice math will also be integrated into the adaptive learning path quests. So similar to choice text, you will be able to leverage choice math for whole class, small group, or individual instruction. And let me go ahead and just show you in the dashboard how you can find these activities. So again, we're just navigating back to that small group skills feature. I showed you before how you can search for choice texts. You can also search for the activities choice math to pull those up like this. And as I mentioned, we have at least one of these available for kindergarten to 6th grade. We highly encourage you all to try it out and give us feedback, and we're going to work on offering these even more throughout the experience. So we are just really excited about this new approach to real-world applications in math. With choice math, students can see mathematical concepts that they've been introduced to on eSpark applied to any topic that they can imagine that they're passionate about. This can ground their understanding in their own background and interests. And on top of that, as you saw, they still get that personalized remediation and celebration from Rocky to help support their growth and engagement along the way. So now you have seen full spectrum personalization in the context of both reading and math. And it's finally time to dive into our brand new subject on eSpark, which is writing. Now, writing presents an amazing opportunity to combine all of the 3 pillars of full spectrum personalization. We're meeting students at their level, we're capturing their interest with personalized content, and we're providing one-on-one, real-time scaffolding and feedback to students throughout the entire drafting process. So one more time for our last demo here, we would love to hear from you, and I'm going to go ahead and start another poll. Now, our new writing activity is bringing an AI-powered writing tutor to your class, and there's just so much potential for how a personalized writing tutor can support your students. So we're curious to hear from you. What is the best way that you imagine an online writing tutor could support your students? We'll pause here for a couple of seconds. All right, we have responses from the majority of the group, and I'm sure you can guess it. There's a clear winner here, with most folks saying they would love to see all of these things completed by a writing tutor. And you may be picking up on a trend here. What is really making us so passionate and excited about incorporating generative AI into eSpark is that it can make all of these features not only possible, but easier to provide than ever before. All right, so without further ado, meet Willow. Willow is our new writing tutor who we cannot wait for your students to be introduced to. Our new activity, which is called eSpark Writing, is expanding on choice texts. And it's doing that by giving students an opportunity to respond to custom prompts that are based on topics students have created informational choice texts on. So what that means is each student gets unique prompts to choose from that are based on their interests. And from there, Willow is guiding them through writing a response step by step and gradually releasing responsibility to students. So just like with our other activities, we're going to go ahead and take some time to see Willow in action. So as you can see, it says, let's write together. We're going to go ahead and begin. Now, the first question that Willow asks us is, what do you want to write about? And you can see I have a ton of options here that I can choose from. Now, the key thing to understand is that all students are going to see different options here. And that's because what I'm seeing are actually the choice text informational texts that I have previously created on eSpark. So the first time that students do this activity, they do need to have choice text that they've already created. If they haven't created choice text, we are going to have them create one first. So students will have already identified a topic here that we know that they're interested in, and then they can choose that topic to then write a response to. I always like to choose rock climbing. That is a sport that I personally really enjoy, so I would love to write a little bit about it. Now, as we're getting started here, you can see that the choice text I previously created is on the right-hand side. Willow is trying to generate some ideas for me to write about. So while I'm waiting to see what my tasks are going to be, I could take a little bit of time to go back and reread this article. Now, Willow has given me 3 writing tasks to choose from to respond to this text. I'll go ahead and tell you our options. So the text is rock climbing, bouldering versus rope climbing. I could write about why bouldering is safer than rope climbing. I could write about explaining the difference between top rope and lead climbing. Or I could describe the equipment needed for rope climbing. So 3 different options to choose from. I'm going to go with the third option here. Now, what Will is going to do is open up a writing space for me. So the writing space is on the right-hand side, and I'm continuing my conversation with Willow on the left. Willow said, I chose a great, fascinating topic, and she's asking me, what equipment do climbers use? She's also given me a sentence starter to help me get started. Now, maybe I didn't have time to reread that whole text, and I'm kind of struggling with what to write here. A key thing that we're working on with this activity is being able to refer back to the text. So in the upper left corner, your students will see a button here that has the image that is associated with the text that they created. If they click on that button, it will open up the text for them to make it easy for them to refer back to the text. So I'm going to go ahead and search for our section on rope climbing here, and we're talking about the equipment. Now, I may be tempted to just try to copy and paste what I'm seeing here into the article. We've actually prevented students from doing that. So while they can refer back to the text, they do not have the ability to copy and paste. So I'm going to say in rope climbing, people use a rope to go up the wall and stay safe. I've written now my intro sentence. I'm going to go ahead and press this green check to submit my sentence, and we'll see how Willow responds. Now, what's really cool about Willow is that she is always responding directly to the inputs that students are giving. So they're getting this really personalized conversation with Willow. So Willow says, you're off to a good start by identifying the role of the rope in climbing, which is exactly what I did. Now she says, let's add more detail about the equipment used in rope climbing. Can you name another piece of equipment used in rope climbing and explain why it's important? Now, I want to give you an example of what Willow does if students are a little bit off task and maybe not responding as Willow is asking them to. So I'm going to write out, I don't like you. I don't want to do this. Let's see how Willow responds. Again, what always is fascinating to me about this is how directly Willow is responding to what students are saying. So in this case, Willow said, remember, we're focusing on explaining the equipment for rope climbing. Let's concentrate on adding more about the gear mentioned in the article. And she asks again the question, what's one more piece of equipment besides the rope, and why is it necessary for safety? So really circling you back to the purpose of what we're doing. I've sometimes seen Willow, when students are really expressing frustration, she's really nice to them and will be very encouraging about why they're doing the activity and how this is helping them grow and getting them passionate about the topic that they're writing about. So really good at responding. I'll also assure you that we know students aren't always the best spellers. They don't always have the best grammar. That's what we're working on here. And Willow is really good at interpreting what students are saying to be able to give them the best feedback possible that's focused on the standard they're working on. Okay, so that is a quick look into Willow. Now, I really want to emphasize here that these first activities we're releasing, the final product we're expecting from students is a paragraph. So when students complete their writing activity, you will be able to see that final draft of their paragraph in your student work tab that we already looked at with choice text. So not only can you see choice text and student videos in the student work tab, you can look for the red tags to identify submitted writing work. So you've seen the potential that Willow has. Willow has only been on eSpark for a few weeks. So those of you that are here, you're some of the first people to see Willow in action. Similar to choice math, eSpark Writing is first going to be released in beta. So that means we want you to try it out. We want you to give us feedback so that we can really perfect these activities before we release them more widely. Just like we saw with our other personalized activities, you can assign eSpark Writing to your students using our small group skills feature. You'll just search for the keywords eSpark Writing, which I'll show you in a moment. And right now you'll see that we have one third grade activity that's ready for you to try. You can try this regardless of your grade level. And we are going to be adding 2nd to 5th grade lessons very soon. The first activities we're releasing are focusing on helping students find evidence in the text. We do plan to expand this to other standards as well. So again, please let us know what feedback you have, and we'd love to hear from you when your students try it out. I'm going to go back into the dashboard and just show you real quick. From that small group skills feature, you just type in eSpark Writing, and you'll be able to see this activity that's ready for you to try. Remember, you can click into the activity, and you can actually try this yourself if you'd like to experiment with it. Okay, so we are going to wrap up here by quickly talking about some ways you can implement eSpark Writing. It's going to be a great addition to your centers or stations. It can serve as an extension to an RI choice text. First, students can practice their RI standard, and they can create a choice text. Then they can write a response to that text. And of course, this is a great activity to assign ahead of state testing. It can be a really great opportunity for extra practice. To wrap up our feature spotlight on eSpark Writing, I want to share some behind the scenes details about the science behind this new activity. eSpark Writing is grounded in several principles, including gradual release of responsibility, teaching students to emulate the features of good writing, integrating reading and writing, and productive struggle with real-time explanations. This fully personalized approach to writing instruction results in a deeper understanding of the topic that students are interacting with. So ultimately, this process isn't just about learning to write, but also writing to learn. Now you have officially seen all of our new personalized activities in action. Thank you all so much for letting me showcase eSpark's full spectrum personalization. I hope you all are feeling as energized and as inspired as we are about the possibilities of leveraging AI in your classroom. Now, as we approach the end of our webinar, I'm going to pass it back over to Kelsey to share a brief summary of today's session.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was an awesome demonstration of all of the magic behind our new activities, and you shared some great tips as well for how our teachers can start leveraging those. So to summarize, there are a few key points that I'd love to review from today's webinar. First, with full spectrum personalization, we're using the power of AI to tailor the content within your reading, your writing, and your math lessons in ways that just weren't possible before because we didn't have the technology. Now that we're able to do this, your students are going to be able to learn at their own level in the context of topics that they're excited by, all while getting that customized feedback and instruction, which leads to stronger learning outcomes. Our data scientists at eSpark actually just completed an analysis to find that when students had access to some of the very features that we talked about today, we're seeing them have more motivation to attempt more lessons and complete more lessons in eSpark versus peers that don't yet have access to these features. So we're already seeing it translate into real world engagement and motivation and those real world learning outcomes, which is what we're all after. So we cannot wait for you to see these activities in action with your students. All of the features that you saw today are available for you to try now with eSpark Premium. They are all premium features, so if you don't yet have eSpark Premium and you're interested in trying them out, please reach out to us at support@esparklearning.com so that we can work with you and give you a chance to try these out with your students.